go ahead and open up the lighting.unity scene. This is not that much different from the previous one. I just arranged some lights around the windows. Nothing else to it, so let's get to work. Let's look at the oddities here. First of all, the lighting definitely does not look good on the trees here, and the ground looks rather odd as well. First thing I'm going to point out is that the ground is a terrain, and within the terrain, if you go within the settings here, you will see that there's also a material setup. Built-in legacy diffuse is a legacy material. Considering we're upgrading to the standard shader, switch it to standard. And immediately we see a proper diffusion of light and not the glossy effect as it was before. You want to give it a little sheen. Smoothness is a little too high for trees. Even most matte material will have a reflection. Okay, we've got the leaves here, which will be a different material as well. We see that it's legacy shaders, transparent. Legacy shaders, transparent. This is outside of the screen. Transparent cutout, and then diffuse. Sorry, you can't see this. That's a long list of tree windows or whatever. In either case, none of that matters anymore because we're going to choose standard. Now, within the standard, Unity very kindly already gives us the cutout option because it's figured out from the previous material that we used. There are a few more settings up here, the metallic, but there's also alpha cutoff, which will actually influence the clip settings for each one of the for the alpha channel. I'm going to leave this as is at 0.5. Do want to make this a little bit more metallic, but I want to dial down the smoothness. Okay, let's take a look around. Can't really see that much for the trees. That might be fine. When we are walking around, we will be looking at a pretty low level. We'll never have too high of a scene. Now those lights flickering that you saw is because the render mode is auto, and because I specified the amount of pixel lights to 4. Pixel lights are the ones that that can render pixel effects, such as normal maps, for example. If I have more than 4, the camera will start turning the other ones to direct lighting. Most of the times it will not be noticeable because these things follow the camera, but you can always either increase this number to get rid of this effect, or within the light you can switch the render mode to important. I'm going to leave this as is for now. Now, I've got a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 lights, and I have my hero. Now the hero we kind of haven't been working on much, and we see that here he is. He is completely not lit. He doesn't have any lighting to it. And also what we notice is that he's also a dynamic object. And dynamic objects will not get hit by the so-called real-time GI. Because real-time GI, it saves information on how light is bounced off objects, but it still requires those objects to be static. Now, the advantage of that is that if you have been previously using baked, you can't move the lights. You can move the lights, and you can have dynamic objects affecting these objects. So it saves the information on how light bounces. That's kind of the clever thinking behind Unity's new GI. We've got our hero here. Here's the geometry, just mobile diffuse. As we did before, let's quickly redefine it. Go to materials, find the material here, create a new one. I'm going to add a legacy suffix. Go in within the shader dropdown, choose standard. Don't see much because our hero has no lighting, So now I'm not actually going to add lights to light up our hero. What I'm going to do instead is add light probes. So let's add some light probes and take a look at the difference between how our hero would look with the light probes and just with the regular lighting. So to create new ones, game object, light probe group. Right away we're given a few, and right away we see our hero lighting up. If we just click on any one of these, move them around by pressing W or selecting the move tool. I'm going to unselect continuous baking because I want to move these to the locations that I wish. I'm going to take this, I'm going to enlarge this group and move it a little bit. Now, what's going to be set up here is not so much what is going to be within these light probes. So each light probe senses the location of sampling of all of the lights of the baked light data where they pre-calculated GI. And based on that information, it bakes in the lighting. So if I go back and choose continuous lighting again, right away we'll see that it's lighting the character. If I move it away, he's no longer as lit. Okay, I'm going to take the ones in the corner, move them a little up. Now what you can do is technically you could move them around and place them in a regular grid-like pattern. By the way, if you can't select them, pro tip is to select the game object. As I was saying, you don't want to put them in a grid because even though you could have a bunch of them and you could have this lighting sampled everywhere, but the name of the game is to save resources. And if you've got them everywhere, then it's kind of pointless, because otherwise you might as well just be doing real-time GI. But because this is fake real-time GI, in order so it'll run on these tiny things in our pockets, we will want to optimize our scenes. Okay, so I've got this set up, and I want some. I want my hero to be lit a little bit more. So I'm going to hit on one of these probes, and I can either hit Command or Control D, whatever it is that you use, and move the objects around the dynamic object where we want dynamic objects to be affected by the lighting. Or alternatively, you can also hit Add Probe. Okay, and I'm going to put in, I'm going to take this one, Command D, move it inside the house, press F. Okay, move it a little higher. And we'll see how this works out. Okay, so now we've got some lighting on our character as he moves around. If you want to have select all of these window lights, I'm going to dial down the range a little bit. Let's talk about scene lighting. There's a few settings here. Skybox connotes what you will see around the scene when there is no geometry that is facing the camera. So what is going to be within all of this void space? Sun is going to be where the brightest point of light is going to be shining at your geometry. Ambient source is where the lighting is going to be ambient, how there's going to be a non-specific direction for the source of light that's simply going to be raising the illumination of all of your objects. I think this personally grays things out, but even the darkest nights will have some ambient color. So I've got some skyboxes up here. I've got one that's just comes with the medieval house, and I have another one that's just stars. You may use either one. I'm not going to specify a sun. For the ambient source of the skybox, that is going to be the skybox, you can also choose a gradient, which is going to affect our scene. As you can see, it basically just makes everything brighter. Maybe give it a little bit. If you want, you can give it some hue as well. Now with all of this, I am going to bake the lighting again. Okay, and we're back. To be honest, I actually went back and forth and I adjusted some things. I did end up adding a directional light, and I upped the baking resolution to 10. Okay, so let's take a look. Oops. Let's take a look around. Got some ambient occlusion around the trees. There it is, just lighting around the edges. Some around the fence here. Let's take a look. Inside the house, we've got some reflection probes, also some ambient occlusion as well. Okay, and then we're going to take all of this and we're going to remove it. This is because it's, I'm quite sure this Unity 5 at this point is very new, but the combination of Big GI and pre-computed real-time GI is kind of a mystery to me. I'm not sure if you can combine with simply by concept, because you're going to have real-time GI on top of baked GI. I'm not exactly sure how they would even work by design. So we're going to be doing basically replicating the same thing, but just using with pre-computed real-time GI. And then I'm going to show you how you can also do some pretty awesome camera tricks. With Unity, Unity 4, if you're an indie developer for Unity 4, you wouldn't have access to a lot of the camera effects. We're going to explore a couple of them actually with the camera in order to achieve some nice ambient occlusion. So if you did bake, go ahead and uncheck Bake GI. It's going to rebake the scene and take out a few components. Okay, so I'm going to go back into my directional light. I do want a little bit of lighting, maybe 0.3, 0.2, a little bit more. Let's take a look inside. Okay, inside is a little dark. Let's pump that up. You can either, well, intensity and bounce intensity is, intensity and bounce intensity is, or let's start off with, intensity is how bright the light is. A bounce intensity is how much the light will live for once it's bouncing off the object. Remember, in PBR and physically based rendering, a object cannot bounce more energy or reflect more energy than it receives. So basically it means how much of this energy this light will retain and how much of it will it bounce off. So you've got the same amount of energy, but it's just a matter of distribution. Okay, something like this. Okay, now let's go to the probes and we're going to switch them to real time. Okay, and take this probe as well. Probe. Okay, switch this to real time. When we switch this probe to real time, we are getting reflection of dynamic objects. So if we look closely, we will see our guy here that is reflected. Now what this does is basically it's a setting for refresh points. This type says, hey, should I do it when you tell me in this refresh mode, or every single frame, which is basically going to kill the processor of any mobile device that you're going to be setting it on in any scene that's moderately complicated. In every frame or via scripting, you can access this via the Unity API, and you can set it to refresh upon command. Custom can generate either a custom cube map or actually have it set so it'll reflect dynamic objects or not, depending when you want to do it. We're going to keep both at baked because this is going to be designed for mobile devices. And then I'm going to take our guy. We're going to be doing the animation later, but I just want to see how he looks like when he is approaching the house. Okay. By the way, here's how it's going to look without the reflection probe and with the reflection probe. So he's getting some nice reflecting. The name of the game is to have him blend into the scene and not stand out, even though he's not getting even though he does not have this pre-computed real-time GI because he's not a static object. Remember, real-time GI does not mean that all objects are going to have global illumination, that all objects are going to have this lighting that is going to be bouncing off into other objects and reflecting them as well in this, conservation of energy. All that means, all of this is kind of a creative hack, which basically means is that it takes all the light that's reflecting off of these static objects and then bouncing only onto static objects. That's the point of reflection probes as well, is that it can sample this rate and then it can reflect onto our character. Same with the light probes. And I'm going to go and just Control Z back. Okay, there he is. Okay, and as I promised, let's take a look into camera effects in order to achieve the same effects as we were getting with Big GI, such as, for example, ambient occlusion, which is nice. Okay, let's take a look. Now, something that we don't have yet in the scene is, actually, let's take a look at these. Let's organize this a little bit. Okay, probes. I'm just going to probes. And just take all of these, dump them in here. Reflection probe 1, it's going to be reflection probe house. It's going to be entrance, and we're going to keep the light probe group as is because whatever, it's the only light probe group. Okay, so one thing that we currently don't have is actually a camera. So let's go ahead and create one. Just create on create camera here. I'm going to rename this main camera and drag this right underneath the village man group. Okay, let's let's finally get to those effects I was talking about. Now, you'll notice that I have several folders here: art, audio, code, scenes, and one of the ones that I have here also is image effects. These are image effects that Unity provides that are only accessible for Unity Pro. However, with Unity 5, Unity has been pretty awesome by providing all of the features for Unity Indie that were previously only accessible in Unity Pro. So, like I said, if you're an Indie, you should get pretty stoked because now we have these in Indie as well. Alright, so one of the ones that I want to get in order to achieve the ambient occlusion one is, surprise, surprise, ambient occlusion. So this is going to be a pixel-based occlusion. So what I'm going to be typing in, if I have ambient occlusion, I have ambient obscurance and screen-spaced ambient occlusion. Go ahead and add screen-spaced ambient occlusion. Right away, we're seeing some nice ambient occlusion. Very nice. I'm going to keep this low, increase the radius somewhat. Okay, and keep this as is. Now, this isn't something that I was using in the Big GI, but I'm going to add it anyway. It's a kind of a nice depth of field, which is going to put some objects in focus and the other ones blurred. Now, we can adjust these focal distance, focal size, and aperture. Quick way to do this, I just kind of a hack in order to get our hero in focus, is to simply drag him into the transform field. So there, he will be in focus, objects nearby, but the further distance will be kind of blurred. One final tweak that I'll do, I think I'll go back to my hero and dial down the smoothness. Smoothness is how tightly objects will be reflected. So right away, we see our hero that, well, I guess I pointed this out before. It's that he'll be highly reflective of everything around him. Looks pretty crazy. Maybe this is the effect that you want. It's our metal hero. Personally, I want to go for something that's not so metal, not metal enough, and just give him a little bit smoothness, which means that he's going to be reflecting few objects around him, but he's still going to have some reflections because everything has a reflections, even the most matte materials. So as you can see here, we don't have ambient occlusion here, but we've got it nicely from the camera.